Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to this council meeting. I'd like to acknowledge those councillors who are present here in the chamber and note that there are two councillors who have sought to attend by remote access. Before we begin, I call on Councillor Mutton to give the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of all present and those watching on webcast, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of these lands in which we meet and to pay our respects to the ancestors, spirits, past and present.
Thank you. We do have two requests for to attend remotely. Councillor Berrigan, do you have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we allow Councillor Spenceley and Councillor Burke to attend remotely for the reasons of travel that they've provided to us in our notes.
Thank you. That's seconded by Councillor Gibson. I put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Welcome to Councillor Spenceley. And are there any disclosures of interest in items on the agenda? Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, 10:10. I have a pecuniary significant conflict.
Thank you.
I'll leave the chamber.
Thank you. Are there any other disclosures? No, thank you. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent to your image and voice being webcast. Councillors, staff and members of the gallery are advised that Council has now installed an improved audio-visual system that's operating in these chambers. The cameras will provide a better quality picture for those watching the webcast or on Zoom, and the new microphone in the centre of the chamber is highly sensitive and can pick up and broadcast any conversation in the room, including in the public gallery. Councillors should continue to use the desk microphones for the benefit of the gallery so that you may be heard within the room. I'd also just remind councillors, council staff and members of the public that you must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during meetings of the council, and councillors who need to use their phone or to text, talk or engage in social media activity must leave the chamber to do so. So we'll go to the minutes, confirmation of the minutes. Councillor Santa moved, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Is there any discussion? In that case, I put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Could I call for a procedural motion in relation to people to address the council? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that we allow the public forum and speakers, but before that, could I move a procedural motion on Globo motions?
Thank you.
I'd like to propose to move the following motions on Globo. Item 9.1, item 9.2.
I want to speak on several of these, so if we can just go a little bit slow, thanks. 9.1, yep.
9.2. 10.1.
I want to speak on 10.1.
Sorry, you're not going to.
I don't have to give prior.
No, Councillor Gibson, if you could call you to order. We're going through the thing. It's noted that you wish to speak on item 10.1 and it will be excluded. Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 10.2. Councillor Welsh, I noticed 10.3, so we won't move that. Item 10.4. Item 10.5. Item 10.6. Item 10.7. Item 10.8.
I'll talk on that one.
So we will move 10.8. 10.9.
And 10.9.
Move 10.9. We have speakers for 10.10 and 10.11, 10.12, 10.14 and 10.15.
I want to speak on 10.14.
I want to speak on
10.15 as well.
Speak on 10.
So for clarity, you are moving that items 9.1, 9.2, 10.2, 10.4 to 10.7 inclusive, 10.12 are moved on Globo. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Welsh. I'll put that those items be moved on Globo. For those in the gallery and watching, on Globo means that the recommendations contained in the reports relating to each of those items are adopted by council if the motion is successful. So I put that item, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Now, do I have a procedural motion in relation to the public forum? Thank you, councillor Berrigan.
Thank you. I would like to put a procedural motion that the speakers be allowed to address the items as they come forward in the public forum.
And seconded by councillor Lamb.
And could I add on to that procedural motion? It's noted that there's a member of the public that wanted to speak tonight on the kayak storage in Milsons Park and missed the deadline. So seeing as she is here tonight, Loretta Moy, I would request that we allow her to speak as well.
As the mover and seconder prepared to take that Ms Moy address on item 10.10.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you, that's included. I'll put the item, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. That takes us to the agenda with the mayoral minutes, and we will then bring forward items 10.10 and 10.11 for the public forum. The first item is 8.1. It's a mayoral minute in relation to the Young Mayors program that has been established by the Foundation for Young Australians. I will speak only very briefly to it. Majority of the councillors sitting here tonight attended the Australian Local Government Association Conference, the National General Assembly in Canberra in the week of 13th to 16th of June. And one of the many interesting ideas that came to us at that conference was that in partnership with a number of councils around Australia, the Foundation for Australian Young People is piloting a program that it's slightly a misnomer. It's called the Young Mayors program, but really it's a sort of mirror council program. It's a youth council that is empowered, that is elected by schools within each of the local government areas, and the young councillors are tasked with setting priorities, and they're given some funds in order to act. The first election has taken place in Mackay, and there are councillors as young as 11 through to 17. And it was interesting to me that so far there are no inner urban councils who are part of the pilot. They were actively calling for expressions of interest. And as we were between council meetings, I submitted an expression of interest. That's no guarantee that we'll be selected, but I would urge councillors to support my recommendation, which is that you note the expression of interest, that we support participation in the program if that's possible, and we write to the foundation to seek that participation. Councillor Sandon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm absolutely delighted to have this on the agenda tonight, and especially in the light of the fact that I have two grandsons here who are attending, and they're showing avid interest in the whole political system. By sheer good luck, yesterday we were in Canberra and I showed them around the Senate and the House of Representatives in Parliament House in Canberra. They are very interested in the political system, and this would enhance that interest amongst all young Australians. It's certainly something that we should be encouraging, and I'm delighted to see that you've been proposing it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Lamb.
I would just like to take a moment to also speak in support of the program, because when hearing about it at the Canberra conference, it was truly amazing how the program both gives guidance for individual students and also inspiration for them to grow and do these types of programs themselves. This program will involve all of the students to do this themselves and to start their own programs, to start their own elections, to become a student council before they can even reach into this type of program. It is truly inspirational. And as we live in a giant education site in North Sydney, I think it's extremely appropriate for it to be done here. So yeah, this is a truly exciting program.
Thank you. If that's the speakers, I put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Takes us to the next Mayoral Minute, Mayoral Minute 2. Constitutional referendum to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people by establishing an Indigenous Voice to Parliament community information event. Councillors, in February 2022, this council resolved to support to accept the invitation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart and to support the referendum. Last week, the federal parliament passed legislation to enable that referendum to occur. So I think that it's time that as council that we resolve to hold a community event, as many councils are across the nation. And I therefore ask that you support the minute. Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is just an absolutely terrific initiative. As the Mayor said, back in February 2022, this council resolved to support the Uluru Statement from the Heart. The Mayoral Minute is putting a resolution into action. What we have been doing for centuries has not worked. We have been asked by the First Nations people that they have a say in issues that affect them. It will be an advisory group that will advise the federal executive. They will not have power to make laws. I support the Mayoral Minute.
Thank you. Councillor Mutton.
I wonder if you might consider a very an addition, and it is to the end of 1, at which the cases for and against are comprehensively put. I say that on the basis that council should be providing the forum and not be seen to be a particular advocate.
Thank you, Councillor Mutton. No, I'm not going to take that on. If you look at the resolution, our resolution that from February 2022 was very clear. It's that we support the position. And so on that basis, I won't. Councillor Gibson.
I agree with Councillor Mutton. It's one thing for us to show our support and vote to show that support. But if we're giving, if we're having an information event, the words community information event means that we should be giving unbiased information and we should be providing a forum to discuss the yes and no case. Otherwise, it's not a community information event. It's just well, how would I describe it? It's just well, let's all sit around and agree that this has to happen, and anyone who doesn't agree with us may as well go home now. I don't think a community information event held in public on council land should present one side of the argument. Imagine if we were doing that in our schools. Goodness me. I think you would be wise to take on Councillor Mutton's suggestion, Mayor, and then everyone, you know, there'll be a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Are there any Councillor Spencerley? Did you have your hand up? No, sorry. If there are no other speakers, I'll put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Those against? Councillor Martin and Councillor Gibson. That is carried. That brings us to the next one. This is a sad celebration of a life of someone who was involved in North Sydney for many, many, many decades. It's Vale Ian Stapleton. If you've read the Mayoral Minute, then you know that he was a pioneer and pillar of heritage conservation in Sydney and in fact across Australia. He was an architect who worked in the early 70s in the special project section of the New South Wales Government Architects, He was important as part of a group of architects who joined with residents in those early heady days of the 1970s to protect the character and the heritage of inner city and indeed the country. In New South Wales, that resulted in 1977 in the groundbreaking New South Wales Heritage Act. And around that time, just before then, he joined with Clive Lucas, another celebrated North Sydney local government conservation architect, as one of a handful of private practitioners who specialised in restoration and conservation. Ian Stapleton wrote some of the most important books on heritage and conservation in Australia. And for many, many years, he was a resident of North Sydney, but he also contributed to the policies that are in place that have protected heritage, not only in North Sydney, but across the country. So he was involved with ICOMOS. He wrote the Borough Charter, helped to write the Borough Charter. And throughout his impressive architectural career, won more than 50 prizes for his work on conservation. And so on that basis, I recommend that we acknowledge the significant contribution that Mr. Stapleton made. We write to his family to express our condolences, and as we have given the assault on the natural heritage of North Sydney of late with the loss of trees, that we find a location to plant a tree in his honour and memory, and that we provide a copy of the Mayoral Minute to his family to that end. So I recommend the motion to you. Are there any speakers? If they're not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That takes us to the last Mayoral Minute this evening, which is seeking your support for Council to explore opportunities to deliver live streaming of selected Matildas matches of the FIFA Women's World Cup at the North Sydney Oval during the 2023 World Cup. This is quite an exciting and historical time that Australia and New Zealand are hosting and playing and will be playing in this event. North Sydney has sought over many years to be a centre for women's sport, and the Oval has definitely played a big part in that, not only for football but for cricket. So I commend the motion to you, Councillor Welsh.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Okay, I got this from the FIFA World Cup website. The first organised football match in Australia was long considered to have taken place in 1880, although numerous recent sources refer to several earlier matches. The men's national team played its international in 1922 and the women's national team in 1979. The Socceroos have played in 6 FIFA World Cups, reaching the round of 16 in 2006 and 2022. While the Matildas have qualified for 7 previous FIFA Women's World Cups, featuring in the quarterfinals in 2007, 2011, and 2015. How fantastic would it be if the Matildas were to make the final 16 and we go to the North Sydney Oval and cheer them on with thousands of other supporters? I support the Mayoral Minute.
Thank you.
Councillor Beregi.
I'll try and compete with that. Thank you. I support the Mayoral Minute. I was fortunate enough with the General Manager to yesterday in the very early hours of the morning attend the launch on the Harbour Bridge, and the excitement and enthusiasm for what is about to occur was palpable, even though it was blowing a gale. We were fortunate enough, the General Manager and I, to meet Julie Dolan, who was the first captain of the Matildas. And she said, it just gives me such delight to be here. I would give it all away just to be here. She was an 18-year-old captain, and she said in those days we had bake sales just to be able to get jerseys to put on. And these days we have a professional sporting women's sport. And it's not just good for women's sport. This is good for sport. This is fantastic for sport, for all sport. And it's very exciting. And I completely support the Mayoral Minute. And I hope that people will get behind the Matildas. What was beautiful to see was so many flags, so many different national dresses out there, so much enthusiasm. And to the kids that remembered to bring a soccer ball, they can actually say they kicked the soccer ball on the Harbour Bridge, which I don't think many people can say. So it is very exciting. It is now 24 days to go. It was 25 yesterday. And those 24 days are going to be built with thrills and excitement. And if we can have a live site and look at doing this on a more regular basis for huge community events at a time where people are living in highly dense areas, this is a great community asset to bring people together over a common goal, which is in a community facility. So that's great. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I certainly support this mayoral minute. I think it's a great idea. I think we all know that North Sydney Oval has long been regarded as the home of women's sports. I think we've made it a place for women to play sports, whatever particular sport they want to play. And as Councillor Vergy said, this doesn't just promote women's sport, it promotes sport in general. If you go up to watch the women's games now, the stands are full of men as well, you know, cheering and enjoying the game just as much just as much as the women supporters do. So everyone loves to see women's games on North Sydney Oval, arguably Australia's most beautiful oval. And it'd be great if we can encourage our local residents to get up there and participate in this way.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. If there are no other speakers, I'll put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That now takes us to the public forum on the two items. The first is item 10.10, Milson Park kayak storage, post-exhibition and site inspection report. We have two registered speakers. The first is Andrew Want. If you would come forward. Oh, it's online. Thank you. Online, which is useful. Mr. Want. If you could unmute yourself and play your video. Thank you. And if you would address the council. I think you're still on mute. I think, can we hear you now? No, if your mute is still showing, if you could take that off.
And how about now?
Now we can, thank you.
All right, sorry, I know
address
I've
the
got to be
council.
quick, so apologies for wasting time.
That's okay, you have
Thank you
3
very much
minutes.
to councillors for letting me.
Your mute is still
Oh.
showing, if you could take it off.
And how about now?
Now we can, thank you.
All right.
If you could turn off the webcast while you're addressing us, and you can always log back in.
To councillors for letting me. Okay, how about now? Are we on?
Now it's perfect, you can start.
Okay, apologies. So thank you again for letting me say a few words. So I've been a resident of North Sydney for 10 years, but I've been working in North Sydney for most of my working life. I am in Whaling Road, and my office is in Walker Street. The reason I wanted to speak to council tonight was to express concerns about the proposal for the kayak storage rack, and in particular the proposed location. If I could just run through a couple of points very quickly. Councillors know better than me that Milson Park is a heritage park. It's an exquisite place. There are very few like it anywhere in Sydney, and certainly in North Sydney, it's quite unique. It's a fact that right now residents are living in a construction zone. North Sydney is just a nightmare. Living in Whaling Road, I can say categorically that it is a cacophony, and it's constant bombardment of noise and diesel fumes and dust and high vis. So I go to Milson Park every day, and I just love being there. The concern is that the location proposed is particularly visible. It's a part of the park that is very regularly used for by residents and visitors for picnicking. I was there this morning using that very corner for yoga, which I do every week. And it's just a part of the park that is exquisite to look at. And it has a lovely view back up the hill towards High Street. That will all be ruined if we have a large stack of kayaks sitting in view. The second point is that fig tree under which it's proposed to put this rack was saved at great expense to council 10 or 15 years ago, and the root system is definitely going to be impacted by the foundations. The proposal, because it's, if this really is a pressing urgency to have this kayak rack, and I'm sure council is considering that, the proposal is to put it over next to the Sydney Water Pumping Station, right next to the Flying Squadron, much closer to the boat ramp, obscured by the existing buildings and some existing foliage. It's a much, much more logical location to put the storage rack. So if it has to be there, given that we have so much construction going on already, I question that. But if it has to be there, could we please put it over next to the Flying Squadron and the Sydney Water Facility? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Want? No, thank you very much for your participation.
All right, thank you.
The next registered speaker is Kathy Brodie. If you would please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to speak. I support the recommendation for the report. Milson Park is a well-loved and utilised asset of North Sydney Council. It is very much a hub for dog walkers, people to picnic, children to play, residents from many apartments who seek sunshine, sailors with the Sydney Flying Squadron, community gardeners, to name some of the users of the park. The proposed addition of 36 kayak racks would be well used by the community and the Kayak Share Club. Milson Park is a great location for this because a ramp already exists to the water that is suitable for a kayak to launch. There are no rocks to have to carry a kayak over. The bay is protected from the wind, making it easy to launch a kayak with access via concrete ramp. But the bay is protected from the wind, making it easy for all to launch a kayak. There are council racks at Carrabba Point with access via a concrete ramp, but this is very challenging point to launch a kayak due to the exposed location and the constant wind. I challenge any of these councillors to try and launch a kayak from that position. The local vicinity is highly built up with many apartments. Most people would have nowhere to store a kayak. New kayak storage that one could walk to would be a win for local residents. Milson Park is also flat, so easy to carry kayaks across. North Sydney Council storage fees for outdoor racks are about $143 per year, which is affordable compared to the commercial daily rental fees of $150 a day for a double kayak. Life is getting expensive, but I'm hoping these kayak storage racks will open up new opportunities for people to discover what an amazing harbour we have. Yes, there is a North Sydney boat shed with some kayaks in it, about 100 metres from the proposed location, but at $1,255 per year, that is not affordable for most, and there is a wait list for the kayak space here. I'm fortunate that I've kayaked on the harbour for the last 20 years and hope that more kayak racks will allow others to use and enjoy our beautiful harbour. Thank you for your time.
Are there any questions of Ms. Brodie?
Yeah. Did you have any ideas about the position in the park that the rack should go?
I don't have strong positions on location. I've left it up to the council to research that. But I'm really here for the community because, like, you can build more racks to get more people out there using our harbour. That's what my speech was about.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin, you have a question?
No, I want to speak to the motion.
We're waiting for, we've got another speaker yet, so thank you for your participation. Ms Moy?
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak regarding the kayak storage at Wilson Park. I'd just like to make 3 points. I've run the Kayak Share Club for now, I think, virtually the last 5 years, and it's just been amazing. The huge, I think, popularity that kayaking has over the years. Our numbers have increased each year and bookings have doubled each year. So it's just incredible to see the uptake of kayaking. It's been just a fantastic sport and it's suited to all ages. Our most active kayakers are actually retirees. They've got all the time. You can do it any day of the week, and it's quite just amazing to see how the uptake is of kayaking. I think given North Sydney's serious lack of open space per resident and Milton Point being the highest density of the LGA, it is so important to have good recreation activities in the area, and this is just a fantastic opportunity not to be missed. Point one is really, I think you all agree, there's a huge demonstrated need for kayaking and all the benefits that go with it. And I think the opportunity, number two, is just there for this site. The park is beside water. And we're a community and it's not a park at St Leonard's or something. It's beside water, and it really has to make use of the rarity of having such a fantastic site to launch a kayak. That's very, very full. Given all our long length of foreshores in North Sydney, we don't have much opportunity, so we have to make it. And I think being such a community one, we're really in the kayak racks, certainly with Kayak Share Club, that we're really interested in having the racks there. We can really provide 18 kayaks to over 200 members. Like we've got 9 kayaks at Hay Street servicing now over 200 members. So we'll be delighted to have more and more members, and it's interesting to see all that feedback in the submissions. Most of those weren't members of our club and weren't quite aware of our club. So I think, and we haven't ever advertised Kayak Share Club. It's been word of mouth. So I say, look, it's a fantastic sport, and I really think North Sydney Council has been fantastic endorsing our club, and I hope you can do it here in this storage rack at Norton. It's been fantastic for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, just before you leave, are there any questions of the speaker? Councillor Gibson?
No, I was going to
turn
move.
off your
I was going to
microphone.
move it.
Thank you,
Well,
Councillor.
I will just ask a question. Do you have a preferred location for the wraps?
I think we're quite open to any area near water, whether it's over on where it's been initially designed. It's very workable to near the flying squadron.
Okay, so over in the sort of northern part of the park towards the stormwater drain, that wouldn't be too far for most people to carry a kayak down the ramp?
No, it's quite typical that paddlers go with another, so you can easily carry a kayak each, and we can use trolleys. But I think it's just all part of extra fitness.
Thank you.
So I think it's all doable indeed.
Councillor Burke, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question for Ms. Moy. The recommendation has a stack of 3. Would a stack of 4 pose major problems, or if we needed to, I guess, reduce the overall footprint, would a stack of 4 be highly problematic, or how would that work?
Probably for short people like myself, yes, because there's an effort in getting up there. But I don't know on that score. I see the 3 stack of easy. I haven't considered for.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the speaker?
I have a motion.
We'll just wait. Thank you very much for your participation. Councillor Berrigan.
Mayor, I have a motion.
I had my light on. I said I had a motion.
Councillor Gibson,
Mayor.
you don't just queue jump because you say so. I'm
I
chairing
turned
it.
my light on
It-
first and
Councillor
spoke clearly
Gibson,
first.
Councillor Berrigan.
All right, I will just say how totally unfair that is.
Thank you, Mayor.
It's obvious I had my light on first.
I have a motion which I've sent in. I'm happy to read it out. And then I'll speak to it. The council not endorse the concept plan for the kayak storage in Milson Park. The council reallocate the funds towards upgrading and refurbishing council's existing small watercraft storage facility in Rixton Park at the end of Willoughby Street, Kirribilli, to maximise its capacity and functionality. The council note the existing small watercraft storage facility in Rixton Park has a dedicated ramp and pontoon, which is in excellent condition and allows direct access to the harbour from the storage facility for small watercraft, including kayaks, without adding additional congestion and impact in an already highly utilised park and ramp. 4, the council note that since implementing the 2018 small watercraft storage strategy, there are now 13 facilities which accommodate 318 small watercraft, predominantly kayaks, across our local government area. In late 2022, council staff revisited the foreshore to update the data and investigated all sites. And investigated all sites where small watercraft was stored informally and assessed the suitability of more permanent and authorised facilities. As per the information provided to councillors this month, it was reported that 4 sites were deemed suitable to become authorised storage facilities with a combined capacity of 29 dinghies, 34 kayaks and 15 dinghies or kayaks. In addition, 7 further sites were identified as being suitable authorised storage facilities or capable of additional storage, and this would accommodate a further 44 dinghies, 114 kayaks and 20 kayaks or dinghies. If all the above sites proceed, North Sydney local government area will have 24 authorised storage facilities accommodating approximately 530 small watercraft, the majority of which will be kayaks. And it should be noticed that in all of this research, Milson Park was not identified as one of the above sites. I would just make a small amendment in item to the motion I'm proposing above, that council also look at the fees being charged in the small watercraft facility at Rixton Park to make them affordable.
5, you've got.
And 5, sorry. The council continue to make representations to the Sydney Harbour Trust, to the Minister for the Environment, the Honourable Tanya Plibersek, and the Federal Minister for North Sydney, Kylie Tink, in relation to harbour access from HMAS Platypus for kayaks.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Lamb.
Thank you.
I have an amendment. I have an amendment.
Okay.
You must take an amendment there. The council trials kayak storage in Milson Park for 18 months. That the racks be positioned parallel to the storm water drain between the existing semi-mature pine trees. And we've all seen the diagram. So this was as we discussed at the site meeting. Away from the fig tree that provides shade. So that the placement of the racks minimise loss of usable open space while taking into consideration safety and ease of use for kayakers. That council acknowledges there will be less than 36 spaces. And in brackets, but hopefully not less than 26. And resolves to allocate 50% of the spaces to the Kayak Share Club
and 50% to be allocated to the general public. And that 6, that a report come back to council 18 months after the commencement of the trial.
Well,
You've got-
councillor
got that
Gibson,
like that.
I'm going to take that as a
That's an
Councillor-
amendment,
no,
Mayor.
Councillor Gibson, I'm going to take that as a foreshadowed motion. It is.
That's outright, Mayor.
No,
I am
Coun-
calling a point of
Well,
order,
then
and
you
you
can
must
call-
listen to a point of order. We all
Councillor
know.
Gibson.
Yep.
I'm speaking, so you were to be silent.
Okay,
I
well,
will.
I'll call a
I've
point of
noted
order.
that you're calling a point of order, and I know that you think that a 18-month trial is a modification of the not endorse the kayak storage, but I'm ruling against you.
Well, I'll just
It is
take
a
out the word
foreshadowed-
trial. I'm going to
No.
take out the word trial.
Coun-
Mayor,
no,
Mayor,
Coun-
I'm calling a point of
no,
order, and you
and-
must
and I-
listen to a
and
point of order.
I've ruled on it,
You
and
must-
I've ruled
no, you
against
must
your
listen
point
to a
of order.
Point of order and listen
No,
to what I
Councillor
think the
Gibson,
point of order is.
You don't. I've
This is
ruled.
the same. So first of.
Councillor Gibson, you'll have an opportunity
First
to
I'm
debate
not allowed
the
to speak when
motion.
I have my
No.
light on first, and now you're not taking an
Councillor
amendment.
Gibson, you will
This
have.
is very bad
Councillor
process,
Gibson, once
Mayor.
again,
Very bad
6.9
process.
of the
Very
code meeting
bad
practice
process.
requires you to allow
Bad
me to
process.
speak without interruption.
Bad process.
Again, I'm calling you to order. I'll
Appalling
take that
process.
as a foreshadowed motion. So
It's
we will now
absolutely an
debate
amendment.
the motion that is there. Councillor Berricky, would you care to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. We all appreciate that kayaking is a lovely sport, and it's one that many age groups can do. However, this is about the use of public open space. There is already a facility with a purpose-built ramp around the corner and a jetty ready for launching small watercraft. It exists already. Council can easily refurbish with part of the money to allow that facility to be refurbished and made more usable for kayaks at very little expense. The issue with kayaking is that council has undertaken a small watercraft strategy and again looked at it last year. In no time did they identify Milson Park as an appropriate location, and there are reasons for this. One is that it is a highly used park in a very dense part of our LGA, like many. Secondly, it is a heritage item. It is a heritage park. And what is important about a heritage item is its view from the harbour. And having a kayak rack on the water actually impedes the view of the heritage item from the harbour. 3, it is effectively taking away public open space from the public. And that part of the park is heavily used by the public for recreational activities. Now, I don't disagree that more people want more access to the water for kayaking, and council is addressing it, as we have seen, both in the small watercraft strategy, which council put out, and again, 2 weeks ago, when councillors were advised of the future implementation of further kayak spaces, acknowledging that people are wanting to access the water. And we understand that. However, we can't just do for one sport things that we are not doing for other sports. Whilst more people would like to kayak, there are many people in this community that would like room to play their sport at all. Hockey, nowhere to play hockey. Netball, pretty much nowhere to play netball. And the numbers playing those sports are massive. If we are looking to effectively portion off parts of our public open space, we need to be looking at those sports that are crying out at every sport and recreational reference group for places to play. And this is not consistent with current council policy, which is based in fact. What the council staff have said, and I thought the numbers were quite incredible. I thought they were good, but I thought they were quite incredible, that if We are already facilitating an enormous amount of access to the harbour for small dinghies and for kayaking. And we are looking at further opportunities to diversify where everybody can access the harbour. Milson Park is used so heavily. Imagine Jacaranda season, where you can't even get up and down the street. You can't get into the park. We have to put in road closures for that. And then we're going to have kayaking on top. At least if we look at using the end of Willoughby Street, we are moving some of the traffic away. To have it all in the park, when the 18-footers are rigging up, no matter where you go in that park on a Saturday, when all the sails are laid out, you will not be able to access the boat ramp. It's an absolute conflict of other sports, which we can avoid because we already have an existing facility available and ready to go. There is also the cost, and a trial is not free. This council is in no budget position to be throwing money after money after money when we have a big hole down the road dealing with a pool. We need to spend our money wisely. We already have a facility that can be purpose-built, can be done in a very cost-effective manner, and can be opened and available within a very short time frame. And we are able to provide different access to the same part of the harbour on through a different method off the jetty and the pontoon directly outside Brixton Park, as opposed to the boat ramp, which is already heavily used. This is just common sense. I understand that everybody wants to be at the heart of the action, but we can't give everybody everything. We have sports in this LGA that have nowhere. Kayaking already has plenty of places already in train. And I don't think that we can go down this path of just because it's a lovely place, which everybody agrees, we can't just hand it over. It is effectively privatising public open space and taking away public open space from our residents when public open space is at a premium.
Thank you. I'm just allowing Councillor Burke to put his hand down. I've noticed that you would like to speak. I'm going to Councillor Gibson, then Councillor Mutton, and I'll come to you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you. Listen, I've noted what Councillor Beregi has to say, and I must say I disagree strongly with most of the points raised. For a start, talking about refurbishing the existing shed, I mean, we can refurbish it all we like, but we can't extend it. Otherwise, we're going to knock out the neighbours' views. They won't be happy about that. We can't make it bigger. We can't go it up. We can't go out either way. It's a shed that exists there, and you might be able to spend a couple of $100,000 and get 1 or 2 more kayaks in. That shed is full. It cannot take any more kayaks. A waste of money, a waste of ratepayers' money trying to put more kayaks in there. But what I'm very, very concerned about, and I would ask councillors to look at page 5 of 23 of this report. Let's all just have a look at it, councillors. We are here to represent our community and to listen to what our residents have to say. On page 5, of the 104 submissions, 87% supported the proposal, while 11.5% opposed. So let's just say it again, 87% supported, 11.5% opposed. And we're trying to be convinced to not listen to our community, to not listen to the results of this consultation process. I think our residents will start giving up on contributing to council consultation because we keep ignoring it. We cannot ignore figures like that. It is simply ridiculous. The amendment that I put forward that's now been pushed back to after the vote on this is a much better way to go. 5 or 6 councillors went down, had a site meeting in the park. We walked around. We recognised that perhaps under the fig tree wasn't ideal because it is used for picnickers in the heat of summer and it provides substantial shade. But we then walked around and looked where the kayaks could go that would be away from that lovely shady tree. And I've included that in the motion that I put to council. So we can have a compromise. We probably won't get the 36 in by going along the fence where we all just, there was consensus at the site meeting that to put the kayaks down that way. So we won't get quite as many in, but they'll be out of the way. They won't be taking the space of picnickers. They'll be quite close to the ramp, and we'll still have a situation where our kayakers can safely and easily lift the kayaks down from the racks. Councillors, don't be led off on some path that we can get all this extra kayak storage into the shed on Willoughby Street. We simply can't. That is a matter of fact. We simply cannot do that. So we've got kayak facilities spreading around the harbour. Well, fantastic, fantastic. We are a council municipality that is blessed with waterways. We are surrounded by harbour. If people want to take up kayaking as a sport, that's young people, middle-aged people, people with disabilities, and bike riding and walking doesn't suit them anymore. If our residents and other people want to take up kayaking and get out and see our beautiful harbour, who are we to try to stop them? Milson Park is used for everything. There's dog walkers down there. Sometimes the dogs seem to take over the park. The boats are down there. They're all over the park at certain times. Yep, in Jacaranda Street, we've got people wandering around looking at blossoms. You also go down there and see lots of dads kicking balls to their kids. You see people practicing with frisbees, and all sorts of other sports are played there in an impromptu matter. Our kayakers deserve the same respect and treatment as other park users, and I am absolutely surprised that there could be a suggestion, again, councillors, 87% against 11.5%. You all know how you need to vote on this.
Thank you,
councillors.
Councillor Gibson. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, if ever there was a matter that should be put off to another time, this is it. We come into this room with a recommendation that goes for around 40 words, and we're presented with 2 motions that are complex, that are lengthy, and traverse a lot of material. They need to be considered carefully. I want to talk about parks and kayaks generally. We have limited open green space in North Sydney. We constantly talk about the need to activate our parks, our open green space. We constantly do that because we're trying to invite our broader community into these spaces and benefit from them. With the kayaks, we're not only inviting people into our open green space and activating that space, but we are also giving the kayakers something that is very rare in Sydney: affordable access to the harbour. Now, I'm against both motions put forward because I think the recommendation is appropriate. I think we should take the initiative and not say we're going to ration the space and we're going to think of other sports and we're going to kick the can down the road. What we have in North Sydney now is a demand by kayakers for space for their boats, for their kayaks. And I think we should grasp that nettle. I think we should actually take the decision, adopt the motion and move forward. And I think we should simply stop saying, kick the can down the road to another day. The need for space for kayaks is here today. That need is growing, and it is constrained by the lack of facilities our council is making available. So councillors, not these motions, go with the recommendation and let's get started. And if anyone has any doubt about kayaks and their use and the number of them on the harbour, just walk around the foreshore in the morning and you'll see an unbelievable number of people out enjoying the harbour. And if we as a council can increase the number to people and make it affordable to people, we should embrace that opportunity. Councillors, I just don't know why we keep kicking the can down the road. I don't know why we just don't embrace the recommendation. Thank you, Beck.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Burke and then Councillor Spencer, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, there's obviously a variety of points made here. I've made several personal trips down there to have a look at all of the facilities with this in mind, including the councillor site visit, which I found really informative. I do agree that the location of the report, the corner there under the fig tree, is suboptimal. There seemed to be a better position along the fence line. That was alluded to, I believe, by Councillor Gibson. This just a few notes that I made. This is a relatively modest investment in a really popular and important sport in our community. We have the luxury of being a harbour local government area. So I do think that we should be sharing our parks for water sports. I had a good look at Rixton Park and our council-owned facility. Had a good look around there, and that Rixton Park is virtually a pocket park. If you did put a kayak rack in there, it basically would take the whole pocket park, and it's a lovely little park with a view and a seat for people to go and sit down. So I wouldn't see that as being an ideal location. I think the option behind Sydney Flying Squadron, I think they'd be up in arms if we tried to put it behind their building, which is very, very busy near the ramp. So I do believe that a compromise is needed here. Public open space should be shared by the public, including for their water sports, again, which are very, very important to our community. So I would also note that Platypus has been highly problematic for our council to get anything out of. I mean, that would be a better location. I absolutely agree with that. And that, you know, if a year or two or 3 or 4 down the track, we got a really good facility there with a lot of kayak storage, we could effectively remove kayak storage potentially from this park. But I do support something going ahead here. Not the full recommendation, but more the compromise of perhaps 3 racks of 18 or 24, you know, along that fence line. So I will not be supporting this motion. I think we should be going ahead with some space. And again, 9 out of 10 people agreed that we should be having kayak space in this area. I take that into account as well. So yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I suppose I'd like to echo what Councillor Burke and Councillor Mutton said. This is a fantastic activation of a small amount of space compared to the volume of people and the access to the harbour that people get. You know, my feeling is we as a council need to do everything to provide access to the harbour. This is a fantastic way to do that. I think the Kayak Share Club should be commended. This is highly successful already, as noted, without any advertising. So I think that if we can actually dedicate more resources to this, provide them with more slots for kayaks, we will end up with far more people using the club. In fact, council, I think my view is council should be promoting that club so that people know that it exists, and we should be providing access to our open spaces, which then include giving access to the harbour. So I support. I do think we need to find a better location for it than under the tree. I agree that location is not suitable, and equally, I also think that we should provide 100% of the spaces to a share club or a form of shared use, because I think by building this facility and allocating it to individual people for the small sums that it costs is not a particularly expandable use of our facilities. I don't think that is a sound argument that because we don't have hockey fields, kayakers shouldn't have access to the harbour. I think that's false logic. We don't have a lot of open space in our area. This is a small use of it for a big impact that can be leveraged through things like the share club. So I won't be supporting the motion, and I really encourage everyone to provide that access to the harbour and allow a huge volume of people to be able to share the resources in an efficient way and enjoy. The council can be proud to have brought that to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Do you want to exercise the right of reply?
Thank you. I'm a bit confused. I'm not sure how many people have actually read council's small watercraft strategy nor the update, in which Milson Park wasn't identified as an appropriate place to have kayak storage. And so when I hear that 9 out of 10 people support this, you've got to remember what was the question they were asked. Do you want kayak storage in Milson Park? They weren't told that we were looking at kayak storage in Wollstonecraft, Waverton, Cremorne Point, Berry Island, Woodley's Cove, Anderson Park, Hayes, further racks in Hayes Street, Carrabba Reserve, Brightmoor Reserve, and Tunks Park. And there's a reason that the staff didn't move for Milson Park, and it's because it's already heavily utilised, and that people use the park, and this will actually top off part of the park. And it's interesting to hear the arguments that are coming through, because Councillor Burke, we're not talking about putting the racks in Brixton Park. We're talking about repurposing and refurbishing the existing kayak storage. And if that is done appropriately, many more small watercrafts could use that facility as well. And then we also have provided a jetty, a completely separate access into the harbour, the same harbour, but where it's not competing with the existing access for other boats. In terms of what I'm saying about other sports is that we have many sports that would like places to play. And I don't think anybody would be supporting a hockey pitch in Milson Park. And I say hockey because it's one of the biggest sports for women. And we've just been talking about women's sport, and we can't provide anything for hockey. We can't provide anything. And this is like queue jumping. Milson Park was not identified in any of the council reports that we have been given. And it is for the reason that it is already a highly utilised park, and we are going to set up a lot of confrontation between multiple users, the ones that are there, and we don't have to do it. We can provide access to the harbour from Milson Park effectively by using the existing jetty that we have. And it's a much better access than a concrete ramp. It's a ramp onto a pontoon where you hop into your kayak and out you paddle. We do give access to the harbour. The idea that this council is not giving access to the harbour is a furphy. I just showed you all of the places that council is providing access to the harbour. We'd all like everything to be in our most convenient position, in the most beautiful part, but we actually have a real shortage of public open space, and that we are now going to take away even more public open space and put even more congestion in an already highly congested part without a traffic study. There is no traffic study. Unlike when we go to Primrose Park in the next item, we had a traffic study. We have no traffic study. We're told that people are coming down to share kayaks. Where are they going to park? How are they going to get there? How long are they going to park? You know, we've done nothing, none of this at all. So to suggest that, you know, we're making a decision on informed information here is not true. This report for Milson Park is very, very superficial. It doesn't take into account the usages of the park, and we already have a facility. This is throwing good money after bad. We all love kayaking, yes, and we see all the kayakers already out on the harbour because they got in the harbour already. There is multiple access points for kayaking, but taking kayak out, it's the principle. The staff have gone and looked at everywhere for kayaking to launch from, and they have given us a report, and they've assessed it based on safety, cost, usage, and now we're looking at a park that never even came into contention. Again, 9 out of 10 people were asked about it, but the question was, do you want some storage in Milson Park? It wasn't, are you aware of all of the storage opportunities? Do you know that there is kayak storage which is currently vacant? So all I'm saying is that we're already seeing a loss of our parks. We're already seeing a loss of trees. We're already seeing a loss of passive open space. And now we're going to give away even more when we have very viable, very financially viable alternatives that can be implemented immediately. A refurbishment of the current shed down in Brixton Park can be done within months, and that can be accessed and straight away. The idea of trying.
Point of order, please, Mayor.
Explain your point of
Yeah.
order.
Is there any evidence that we can actually put extra spaces into the existing facility? And how, is there any indication of the cost?
What is your point of order?
Well,
That's
I
a
want to say,
question.
councillor Berge is actually presenting false information to the meeting. That boat shed cannot take, might take another one
Okay, thank
kayak,
you.
but we cannot fit.
Councillor Berge,
we-
Councillor Gibson, I'm ruling on your point of order. Councillor Berge, would you like to comment on
Sure,
that?
I have discussed it with council staff, and it can be refurbished. The rib in there is deflated. People have not used their boats for a long time, and we can implement the same thing that we do, which is we put stickers on kayaks, and if they're not used and they're not removed, we can go. And councillor Gibson, with respect, I didn't pull you up on how much your trial was going to cost. I suggest councillors really think about how they want to privatise this piece of open space. This is used by families. We're going to have racks. Racks are unattractive, you know, and in terms of going forward, it wasn't identified. There's no point in having a report if we're not going to listen to it. I'd ask you to support the motion.
Thank you. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is lost. Councillor Gibson, you foreshadowed a motion. Would you move the motion?
If you could just bring it up on the screen again, please, Mayor, and I want to get an outcome here tonight. Our community deserves it. So I'll be taking on suggestions from fellow councillors.
Well, if we just get the motion.
We'll get the motion
moved.
up. It's not all that easy to see.
It's not up yet.
Oh, good. Thank you. So I've got the motion up there. I do want to, if someone can second it,
Well,
and then.
well, thank you, councillor
Yeah,
Gibson,
and then-
seconded by councillor Pouris.
Good.
Do
And
you
then
wish
I'll.
to speak to
Yep,
your
I do
motion?
wish to speak to it. Thank you, Mayor. We can take out the word trial if you like. I only put the word trial in because at the end of the 18 months, we might want to put more kayaks in. That was simply the point, that we start with a certain number, see how that goes, and then put more in. if
Councillor
necessary.
Gibson, if I may just interrupt you, we have a motion which is.
Yes, and I'm
as
speaking to the
published
motion.
and it's seconded.
I'm
Yes,
speaking to the
yeah.
motion.
If you are calling for potential amendments or to be taken on by you, could we do that now and then you speak to a motion that is before the council? Otherwise, it is confusing those who are seeking to understand
No,
the
it's,
position.
it's not at all confusing. I was just explaining my reason for using the word trial. I don't anticipate that the trial will mean that at the end of the 18 months, we'll decide to take it all away. I'm using the word trial to see if we would add extra kayaks into the area. I think when we there were half the
So can
council.
can we, someone take us through the motion?
Yep, let's go through yep, we can go through it. Yep, the council trials kayak storage in Milson Park for 18 months. That the racks be positioned parallel to the stormwater drain between the existing semi-mature, I think they're Norfolk Island pine trees.
Pine trees is sufficient, I
Yep,
think.
that the placement of the racks minimize loss or de-loss, minimize loss is okay, minimize loss of usable open space while taking into consideration the safety and ease of use for kayakers. That council acknowledges that there would be less than the 36 places originally proposed and I think I put in brackets, but
I think you had the words, but
Yeah.
hopefully.
hopefully
no
not less than 26. And resolves to allocate 50% of the spaces to the Kayak Share Club and 50% to be allocated to the general public. And the report come back to council 18 months after the commencement of the trial.
That's the motion.
Yeah, that's the motion. I am happy to take on board if I do support the Kayak Share Club. I was the one that helped get it going with Miss Moy. If everyone thinks it would be better to have all of the spaces go to the Kayak Share Club, I would be very happy with that. And then we could put in the last motion that in 18 months' time, if we wanted to expand the facility, we could then provide some for the general public to rent. But if that's the consensus, I'll wait to hear from other councillors. But I'm happy to take on board that we give them all to the Kayak Share Club, because I just think it's a great initiative. It means less kayaks being stored everywhere and more people having access to the water, because not everyone can afford to buy a kayak or pay the rent for a kayak. And we need to be encouraging more people to take part in this club so that more people can get out and enjoy our beautiful harbour. And kayaking can't be just for those that are lucky enough to live on our waterfront and have their own kayak facilities in their backyard. We have to have space in our public parks for people, for regular members of our community to be able to go kayaking. So I think this is a good compromise. I thought a lot about it, but we did have a site meeting and discuss the options here. I again state very clearly that there is no way that more than one or two extra kayaks could possibly be jammed into that existing building. That's just a furphy, absolute furphy. And I know that shed very well. I know people that use that shed, and I know that you can't fit heaps of extra kayaks in there with all the best will in the world. I'm hoping councillors can see a way forward to go along with this. It's only a slight compromise. It's just a better location. And let's keep our kayakers happy. Let's keep our community happy. Again, 87% support it, and most of those people were locals. So councillors, please vote to support this motion. But I'm happy to hear from the next speakers whether we should just amend it to give at this stage 100% of the spaces to the kayak club.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as invited by Councillor Gibson, I'd like to move an amendment that the initial spaces and for the 18-month trial be reserved for shared use, not just the Kayak Shared Club, but any other shared use of kayaks that come along. I don't think there's particularly much leverage that we get from giving one person one kayak.
Thank you, and that's taken on by Councillor Gibson. Do you take that on as a seconder, Councillor Lapouris?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Councillor Burke, I see that you wish to speak, but Councillor Lapouris had his light on. So I'll go to him and then come to you, councillor Lepore.
I would like to propose the amendment to remove the word trial.
Okay, let's do that. All right. Well, we'd move absolutely, we can remove the word trial, but still get a report back at the end of the item.
That's fine.
Absolutely agree. Good.
So the mover and the seconder have taken that on. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated earlier, I believe that this could, some years down the track, if we have a better facility just around the corner at Platypus, it may be that we could remove this. So that should be left as an option for future council to consider. The other point is an amendment, Mayor, regarding also doing an audit and a review of the storage of the current facility to have further potential private storage in there now that we have the share situation under control. Would
the mover take that on?
Yeah, we'll take that on as 0.7.
Thank you. And councillor Lepore, you second that? So I think for the minute taker that you've got that. Councillor Burke, if you wish to repeat your amendment, which is that a council undertake an audit and review of the use at Rixton Park / Willoughby Street storage.
Councillor Burke, could I just suggest we add on there, where are the words? With the point being to assess whether there is any possibility to add any extra kayaks into the space, something like that.
Yes.
If we're going to do an audit, let's do the audit with something in mind.
To identify options.
To identify options. Thank you, councillor Martin.
Councillor Bruce, you take that on as well. Thank you. So 0.7 is that our council undertake an audit and review of the storage facility at Willoughby Street to identify options.
For further capacity.
For further options for further capacity. Exactly.
Okay. Are there any other speakers? Thank you. So councillor Berry.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I have a question for the general manager. We haven't looked at this as a space, and we have a lot of issues with regards footings and heights and everything. We really just can't say there's a piece of park. I think we should build something in it. We need to do a feasibility study, and we need to, as we have done with the other one. Could we? So my question is, in terms of moving this forward, what happened if this would be an unlawful motion if we're asking to do something that we don't know that we can do?
Madam Mayor, I'll refer that through to the Acting Director of Open Space.
Just that with the plans and management in that for that area and its use ancillary to the park and to the waterways nearby, we don't need to lodge a DA associated with that. We could move forward as proposed.
Okay, just a follow-up question. I wasn't asking whether we needed to lodge a DA. I was asking whether we haven't looked at this site. We don't know if there's pipes underneath. We don't know if there's access that's required underneath the kayak. That's because when I went over to that area, I was pointed out that there were sewer pipes, there's Sydney Water, there's a manhole cover, so there's going to require access. I don't think we'd be allowed to build over that. So we actually have not done any feasibility study into whether this is actually going to be possible at this point in time. Is that correct?
In terms of services underneath, no, there hasn't been yet.
Right.
But there will be as a matter of course. We will do that as a matter of course.
Okay, so in that case, I'd like to move an amendment that council undertake a feasibility study of looking at the other looking at the position of positioning the racks parallel to the stormwater drain between the existing and semi-mature pine trees, and that a report come back to council regarding the feasibility of this as being possible.
I'm not going to take that on.
I do not move to.
Is there a seconder for that?
Otherwise,
is there a second? Councillor Lam seconds
briefly speak to that. Councillors, we can't just. I heard Councillor Mutton telling us that we can't do this and we can't do that. Well, now we're looking at taking a motion we actually don't even know that we can build. So it's not good enough just to be able to say we looked at one option, we had all the work done on one option. Now we've completely shifted it to another part of the park, and we don't know what's under there at all. And so this motion as it stands can't go forward until we know that this can happen.
That's
So-
not true. Yeah, a point of order, Mayor.
We can't
It's-
install.
No, we just heard from the director.
So
that it is a
this
legal
isn't a
motion.
debate, councillor Gibson.
This
What
is a
is your
legal
point
mo-
of order?
This is a legal motion.
Well,
We haven't heard that
there's no
nothing stopping it.
dispute that it's legal. It's up to the chair as whether or not to put a motion, whether it's legal or not, and I'm not disputing that your motion is legal. But what we do have before us is an amendment from councillor Beregi that calls for a further report on the identified location. Councillor Beregi, Councillor Spenceley, if you can put your hand down, I'll come to you when Councillor Beregi continues because she has the floor
Thank you,
for the
Mayor.
amendment.
It would be reckless and ridiculous to go ahead, start building and putting kayak racks on a place only to have them moved. We need to do a feasibility study. We don't go allowing people to build wherever they want to build. If we're going to look at this as an option, we need to seriously look at it as an option and have a report back to know that it's feasible to do so. Otherwise, we're throwing money after money.
Thank you, councillor Spenceley, to speak for or against the amendment put by councillor Beregi. That's what's before us. You've spoken on the motion proper.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. If it's feasible, I don't know if it's possible to foreshadow an amendment, if this amendment, or to propose a different amendment, but the amendment being that we place the words subject to feasibility, council installs the racks. And I think that will take into account that we won't build something that's not feasible and allows us to proceed with the build if it's indeed possible to build on that piece of land that councillor Beregi has brought to our attention validly. So I propose to amend the motion with subject to feasibility.
We can put that into the
Councillor,
substantive motion.
you'll take that into
We'll take that
the
into the
motion.
substantive
Councillor
motion.
Lapouris seconds that. So the substantive
That's
motion,
fine.
do you withdraw your amendment? Yes, okay. Are there any other speakers on the motion? We only have one before us as councillor Beregi has withdrawn the amendment and so has her seconder, councillor Lamb. In which case I'm going to put the motion. Does anyone need any clarification or are you very sure of what is now before us? That council install kayak storage at Milson Park subject to a feasibility study. And then the following items about the placement and the numbers of the racks and the allocation.
Wait a minute, we've still got up there 50% for the general public and 50% for the kayak share club.
So I think the point put forward by councillor Spenceley that you took on was to allocate 100% of the spaces to share. Because he wasn't saying just this club, was to shared facilities.
To shared facilities.
That's
yeah.
correct, Mayor.
Change the 50% to 100%. So
No,
we'll
no,
say
it's
to the
50
kayak share club or other similar organisation.
That's
Yep.
that was
okay.
my amendment.
And or
Is it?
And or so on paragraph 4, prayer 4, if after the words the kayak share club, you put and or similar organisations. And I think that the original motion included after the word 36 spaces in brackets. I think you used the words hopefully not less than 26 spaces.
26, which is, I think, about the number we talked about at the site meeting. That's why I'm putting that number in.
I think it's worth us just taking this for clarification. 6 is blank. Item 6 is blank. I don't think there is an item 6. I think the rest of it's been incorporated into the main.
What was the original item 6?
There wasn't one. I think there was discussion about the various amendments and they've made their way into the other prayers in the motion. Thank you. So are the mover and seconder satisfied that that is a proper reflection of what you are moving?
To identify. I guess number 6, the end could be better to identify options for extra storage, but I think we all understand what we mean there by
Capacity.
identify options.
For extra capacity,
To identify
options
options for
extra.
extra capacity. Thank you,
Okay.
councillor Burke.
So if you could add those words for extra capacity, before I give sorry, councillor Spencer,
Point
do
of-
you have?
Thank you, Mayor. Point of clarification, the kayak, where we're saying point 4 that the Kayak Share Club and or other similar organisations, my original amendment was for and other shared use. It may be that a group of community want to share, one doesn't have to be necessarily an organisation.
Okay,
Another similar, why don't we
other
change
shared
organisation?
use.
We should change organisation to groups. It could be a group of neighbours.
Well, I think it said other shared use. So if you're the mover and the seconder, I'm happy to take that off.
Kayak Share Club. Yep, that's good.
And
Okay.
councillor Lapouris, okay, before I offer you the right of reply, councillor Lamb has indicated she wished to speak.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that because of point 4, when it says shared use, I'm going to be voting against unless it specifically says public use. As I've heard from multiple members of the public that the Kayak Club and other organizations have received extreme favoritism in the past, and we need more public areas. Thank you.
On that note, would the mover and seconder be prepared to put the words shared public use? Include the word public?
No, I think it's okay as it is.
Okay.
I think it's all right as it is.
Okay, in which case you have your right of reply, councillor Gibson, if you wish to exercise it, or we could just put the motion. Are you going to exercise it?
Yes, I would like to just speak. I do, councillors, look, I think it's good that we've got to a workable compromise now, and I thank everyone for their input. I think it just sometimes adding more words makes for more confusion, and I think everyone understands the spirit of what we're trying to do here. We're not going to have, we're not going to be approached by a private kayak club trying to use the spot. So I think that's, I think that we mean the word community in there is sufficient rather than adding in the word public. I think this has been quite a long debate. We've all come from a good place here trying to solve this dilemma and support our community. Our kayak community our kayaking community must be supported, and just like any other sport. And this has been a long conversation with our community to provide extra kayak spaces. This has been going on for years and years and years. And as one of the councillors said, we don't want to kick the can further down the road and complicate things. Let's pass this tonight, and then we can start looking at other opportunities. We can, this is the start of sharing our parks, not the finish. I urge you all to support this motion tonight.
Thank you. I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? The item is carried. If we could call for councillor Welsh to return to the chamber, and then we will move to item 10.11, the reconfiguration of Primrose Park. Thank you. There are 2 registered speakers on this item, so I'd ask first for Leslie Somerville to come forward, please.
Good evening, councillors. My name's Leslie Somerville and I'm representing Brightmoor Precinct, which lodged an objection to the reconfiguration for the following reasons. 1, the loss of open green space for non-sports users. The park is extensively used for general exercise, off-leash dog exercise and picnics. Access to the walking trails around the park perimeter will be restricted. when the sports are in progress. There will also be limited space around the fields for spectators. Number two, one of the new fields is right by the water's edge with a high likelihood of balls ending up in the drink. What requirements would be needed by OH&S regulations for ball retrieval? Or would an unsightly net have to be erected by the harbour foreshore? And if so, how high would it be? Three, the increased pressure on the limited number of car spaces in the Mataura Lane car park, which services 4 tennis courts and the art and craft centre groups. 4, the unacceptable parking congestion on the local residential streets. During busy periods, vehicles are often parked illegally in no stopping zones in Lower Young, Little Young, Bennelong Lane and Wonga Road. This makes it especially difficult for the large buses taking teams to the playing fields. Many of the 483 available parking spaces identified in the car parking assessment are over 15 minutes walk away on steep roads or steep bushland tracks, especially difficult for people with mobility issues, carrying equipment for sport, art and craft, picnic supplies or children's play equipment. Furthermore, Brightmoor Precinct also welcomes the Mayor's initiative regarding private schools sharing their facilities with the community during school holidays or at other times when not in use. We also look forward to the government replacing in the immediate vicinity of Camaray Park the 1.5 hectares of open green space that has been lost there. Brightmoor Precinct supports the Mayor, to quote, in putting open space and density on the table as an urgent subject for discussion so that council can determine open space and financial priorities that we as a community can own and work towards together. We request the council defer approving the conversion of open space to playing fields until such priorities are determined. Brightmoor Precinct objects to the reconfiguration proposal and urges council to reject it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Thank you for your participation. The second and last speaker for the evening is Meredith Trevelyan-Jones. If you would come forward, please. Give your name.
Can I just say, it's really impossible to hear the people speaking. Can you do something to increase the volume?
If you could take Ms. Trevelyan-Jones, if you could take that microphone and press it on. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. My name is Meredith Trevelyan-Jones. I'm speaking on behalf of Willoughby Bay Precinct. Madam Mayor, in the March edition of North Sydney News, you noted how the population of North Sydney has doubled over the last 40 years and more density is on the way. You commented that more density without more open space must change the way we live. And as the previous speaker said, you said you were putting open space and density on the table as an urgent subject for discussion. Willoughby Bay Precinct supports your call for this discussion. As the submissions on this item make clear, there is a shortage of playing fields in North Sydney. Clearly, it's going to get worse. Successive state governments have said that the cities of Sydney and North Sydney will become a global city straddling the harbour. How do global cities handle this issue? I found a recent New York Times article entitled "Are Parks for Strolling or Sports?" In New York, it's complicated. New York City has a shortage of public playing fields. It issues permits to applicants each year. Around 40% of applicants don't get a permit. The New York Times article noted how important good public transport is for players to get to their destination. You don't drive across the city to get to a playing field. You use the subway or a bus. The submissions on Primrose Park identify lack of parking as a key issue. When games are on or training is taking place, drivers park wherever they can, competing with other users, such as the Arts Centre and the Children's Bike Park. The lack of parking is so acute, it is common to see drivers parking in no stopping zones or reversing the wrong way up Wonga Road, a one-way street. They reverse across the pedestrian crossing, which is located between Primrose Park and the Children's Bike Park, then reverse up the road until they find a spot. Public transport doesn't serve Primrose Park. The precinct believes new playing fields should be located close to good public transport. Council's 2015 Recreational Needs Survey indicated that the 3 most popular uses for council's open space and sports facilities were open space for relaxation, bushland reserves, and parks for social and family recreation. Over 85% of the North Sydney population lives in medium density and high density housing, and this percentage is set to increase. Access to open space will become ever more important. Willoughby Bay Precinct supports the retention of passive recreation open space in North Sydney. The precinct supports the recommendation that the Primrose Park reconfiguration project be discontinued. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Thank you again for your participation. Councillor Berricky.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move the recommendation with,
So,
just a third. Point 3, the council, oh, sorry, I can't see it coming up, but it's okay. The council, reassess the usage of its other sports fields, including North Sydney Oval and Bon Andrews, to see whether additional capacity can be secured for sport, for organised sport. Sorry, the council re-explore.
reassess.
Reassess the usage of other sports grounds, including North Sydney Oval and Bon Andrews Oval. See what additional capacity for organised sport may be available.
Is there a seconder for that, Councillor Lamb? Councillor Berricky.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it would have been very apt if we had this motion before the motion that just was heard. Again, the three major uses of our public open space is recreation, and yet we have just in the last motion voted to remove it from the public for infrastructure for one sport. I chair the Sport and Recreation Reference Group. I know how hard it is for all sports, all organised sports, any sport, to find enough grounds to play on. We know that sporting teams do not take on any more members because they cannot find any more sports fields to play games on. We know that we are being asked to extend hours, and other councils in the Newsrock area are asking us to be extending hours into weekends just so people can play sport. And as for women's hockey, well, they have to go to Homebush. Whilst I have every sympathy for reconfiguring the sports ground, it just simply isn't a good use of public funds and isn't a good use of our open space. And making better use of the funds by having those 3 sporting fields with enough curtilage for at least dog walkers and the public to also be able to access some of the playing fields area whilst games are in progress is an absolute essential element. Again, a traffic study and the traffic has been taken into account. Again, the exercising of the exercising of our judgment in allowing everybody to use the parks and not isolating it. We must be reminded that when sports aren't being played, they are public open space. However, when kayak storage is there, it will never be public open space. In terms of moving forward with this, we have tried to, and I thank you, council staff. I know it's very disconcerting to go to all of the efforts of doing all of the work to try and reconfigure things to the sports field to try and make it work. But sometimes you just can't fit everything in. And this is one case where the intent was worthy. The intent was in the best interest of trying to find a way to meet the capacity needs of our community in terms of organised sport, but it's not a great outcome. And as much as I would love to be able to have a 4th sporting field somewhere, this is not the place. So it is with disappointment that I say I'm happy to not support this and forego it, but hopefully we will find other ways to facilitate better use of it. And hopefully if we are able to spend the money improving the drainage and everything, we may be able to extend the life of the turf and get some more hours on the 3 existing fields. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Welsh is next, and then Councillor Burke. I noticed that you have come to.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, I do agree with Councillor Bergy. I understand that the North Sydney LGA is in desperate need of playing fields. And tonight we have a motion on our strategic youth plan, which talks about how participating in sport can help with mental health issues. I know Primrose Park well. It is by leading a public campaign to have the Primrose Park tennis courts refurbished that I ended up a councillor. The most significant problem with increasing the number of fields is the increased number of cars. Already people are, as has been stated, are regularly parking illegally. I mean, the driving backwards up Wonga Road is just absolutely breathtaking. I support the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it is a tragic situation where our kids and adults can't get onto a sports field and can't grow capacity in these incredibly important activities that are important for our health and well-being. So I support this motion, and I would like to state that the rapid pace of overdevelopment in our local government area is not being met with proportionate new sporting and recreational facilities. And I'd like to propose an amendment, Mayor. A point 4, it would be that that council write to the State Planning Minister to note that developer contributions are not funding proportionate new sporting and recreational facilities to match their increased density targets, and ask the minister what their government will do to fix this.
Will the mover take that on? Yes, it's taken on by the mover and the
Thank you.
seconder. Thank you, councillor Lamb. Are there then councillors? You wish to speak? No. Okay. Are there any other speakers? Before I give the mover the right of reply, I'm just going to briefly speak to it, which is I support the recommendation and the motion. The traffic study and the lived experience of the traffic at Primrose Park, I think is determinative. The speaker, Ms. Trevelyan-Jones, talked about New York and about the ideal of arriving at intensely populated sporting fields via public transport, which has to be an ideal, and in a place like North Sydney should be able to be achieved. The reality, though, is that this is just 10 square kilometres. The delivery of any new additional outdoor sporting facilities, sporting fields in particular, is aspirational at best, because the cost of acquiring land for that purpose is beyond local government alone. I agree with councillor Burke that there have been decades of failure of state governments to deliver community facilities such as indoor sports centres to accompany the new population. We don't have enough to deal with existing, let alone future population, and that will be a continuing battle, and we're certainly not alone in that in metropolitan Sydney. But to that end, the council is working with our regional organisation of councils, and we're waiting on an update to the sporting grounds review that I think we'll see these hard conversations. When Councillor Beregi talks about hockey players playing in Homebush, I think we're going to be talking increasingly about cricket and soccer players playing in Hornsby and Ku-ring-gai, because when that will be the reality of a regional solution, and without increased spending on really fabulous public transport, we'll just be exporting a traffic and congestion problem to our neighbours during sporting competitions. So for all those reasons, I support. And finally, one road in and one road out with already supercharged capacity at Primrose Park. It's just the wrong location for further expansion, and for all those reasons, I support the motion. Councillor Beregi, you have your right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'll just have the motion.
And put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That takes us back to the rest of the agenda. The first item is 10.1 North Sydney Olympic Pool. Is there a mover? for the recommendation, councillor Welsh, seconded by councillor Berricky. Councillor Gibson, councillor Welsh, do you wish to speak to it or reserve your right of reply? Councillor Gibson?
Look, I think this is the main project, before us at this council, and to let this go through without speaking to the item, I think would be amiss of me. I think it would be a good idea, and if the councillors that moved and seconded the motion, that we have another site meeting, the councillors have another site meeting in, say, October, just so that we've got to keep going down there and seeing for ourselves what's happening, I think. The last site meeting was very valuable, and I think we need another one in October to make sure that it is continuing at the pace that we expect. So I'll either move an amendment or hope that you would take that on.
Councillor Berg, councillor Welsh, do you take that on? Do you want to specify, or just that
The general manager.
at the general manager's discretion? The seconder takes that on. Thank
Yeah,
you.
look, I think thank you for that, councillors. I walk past this pool nearly every day, and you have a peek in behind the closed wooden doors, and it really seems to be going along very slowly. I don't know how we've gone with getting extra contractors on site, but it certainly doesn't seem to be going at the speed that I would like to see it progressing. So I think if we go down, it gives us a chance to see for ourselves what's happening and to ask questions. So that's all I have to say with that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers? Do you wish to exercise your right of reply? Thank you. I'll put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. That takes us to 10.3, the operational plan and budget. Councillor Welsh. Moved by move the recommendation, seconded by councillor Berricky. Councillor Welsh, you wish to speak to the item?
Yes, please. I just wanted to pull out the amendment to number 12, the Traffic and Transport Operations Department, project 2.3.3.01, review of the integrated cycling strategy, has been reinstated following receipt of a grant funding enabling the work to be undertaken in 2023-24 instead of 2024-25. The last time a review had been done was 2014. So very pleasing indeed. Kudos to Mr. Cunningham and his team in the Traffic and Transport Operations Department on their grant application skills. The majority of councillors in the GM have just returned from the extremely informative General Assembly of Local Government Conference. At the conference, we heard heart-wrenching stories from more than one mayor holding back tears while they described the harrowing conditions their communities were forced to endure. Children not eating for 4 days, that's Australia. Mayors' families having to barricade themselves in their homes because their communities are so desperate, they want someone to physically pay for their suffering. 26 people living in a house built for a small nuclear family. We heard many federal government ministers talk about new grants that are available. It is terrific we have access to these grants because we have fantastic staff that are really good at making a case for our council. Perhaps sometime down the road, North Sydney Council can come to some type of an arrangement wherein our excellent council staff could work with some of these less fortunate councils around the country to help with their grant application skills. A suggestion for another time. I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That takes us to item 10.8, sections 34 conciliation conference process, moved by councillor Berricky, seconded by councillor Lamb. Are there any speakers?
I won't make a comment at this stage, thanks.
Okay. Okay, then I'll put unless you wish to speak to it, I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.9, Design Excellence Panel Recomposition Post-Exhibition Report. Moved by councillor Berrigan, seconded by councillor Lamb.
I had a question on that one there. So reading through this. We look at if we go to page 5, we look at the charter of the design. Not the design. Actually, no, I withdraw that. That's okay. I withdraw what I was going to say there.
There are no other speakers. I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. That takes us to item 10.13, Draft Youth Strategic Plan. Councillor Welsh, wish to move?
I move the recommendation.
Seconded by councillor Berrigan, and you have the floor if you wish to speak.
Okay. 87% of youth in our local area are reporting mental health issues. 3.8% of local youth between the ages of 15 to 24 years are not employed or in education. According to Mission Australia, 31.2% find it hard to turn to friends and family if they need help. One young respondent, a male 15, stated, "We need more support and recognition towards those who went through lockdown during their early high schooling years. There haven't been much mental health support towards those who struggled through the lockdown." I was speaking with a counselor from one of the local youth centers. was told that children from the ages of 10 to 14 during lockdown missed a vital time in their social development that many will not be able to overcome. She said it is a lost generation. According to this report, there's a whole cohort of young people who still haven't re-engaged with school or society due to the effects of COVID. That's a quote from a school support officer. The strategic youth plan is an incredibly important element of council's work. Our youth need support, and the youth strategic plan is how we will deliver that support. I encourage the community to read the document and give feedback. I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Just before I put the item and offer you right a reply, I'd just like to support strongly what councillor Welsh has stated tonight, and to particularly thank council's community development staff. This is a very good strategic plan, and hopefully it will engender a great deal of participation when it goes on public exhibition. Do you wish to exercise your right of reply? Sorry, do you wish to speak?
No.
Thank you. In which case I will put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. That takes us to item 10.4, care, control and management of Cameron Park and Reserve, moved by councillor Berrigan, seconded by councillor Lamb. Councillor Gibson, did you wish to speak to this item?
Yes, look, just briefly, reading through this, I tried to get onto Camaray Golf Course this morning to speak to staff there to make sure that they were aware that this was coming to council tonight, but I couldn't find anyone to pick the phone up. I just read this and wonder if we should actually be more direct with our community and our public. What we are virtually saying here is that we see, I think that we see a better use for this space, and that we really question whether the golf club will continue there. We're sort of inferring lots of things, and we aren't saying them. So I think we should actually make our position a bit clearer to give some direction to those involved with the golf club. I don't think our residents need to read between the lines in the way that that is necessary here. So I think we should be coming up with a position on this.
Thank you, councillor Gibson. Councillor Burke, I'm going to come to you, but first I'm just going to say This report is an absolute duplication of the mayoral minute that we unanimously resolved on earlier this year. It doesn't provide very much more other than allowing the general manager to continue in negotiations and for between meetings, me to continue to write to the Minister for Lands. Councillor Burke, if you wish to speak to the item.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. I support the motion, but I'll just make a couple of quick comments. I definitely support council having responsibility for care and control and management of this Crown Reserve. And I support our community fundamentally determining the outcome of this space. But I do want to make a couple of points in that I support all of our sporting clubs and groups, and I want to see more sports and more groups. I think we've got to be careful. We should be directing our anger, I think, at the state and federal governments that are putting high density targets in our area and not commensurate new sporting facilities. So this almost sets up a situation where we might have infighting between our sporting clubs, and I don't really want to see that. I would like to see us direct our concerns at the state and federal governments rather than an individual sports club, for example. Thank you, Mayor.
You, Councillor Martin.
I don't think it's a question of infighting between council and sporting clubs. I think there's a very live issue, if you look back at the history of Camaret Golf Club, that it has had difficult financial times. And they used to call it the elephant in the room. But this council, we constantly acknowledge the scarcity of open green space and sporting facilities. This council needs to be in a position, if the golf club were to fail, to better utilise that space. And there should be no doubt in the broader community that we would enthusiastically take over that open green space if the golf club ceases to be liable.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Just before I put the item, I will speak and say this item is about tenure. It's about whether council has care and control of community land, no matter who's leasing it. It's pretty simple. And I think it's pretty clear what is in the community, the public interest, and that is that council have care and control of those public lands, those diminishing public lands at Camaret. So I'm going to put the item, all those in favour. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That takes us to 10.15, council owned properties response to council resolution. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Are there any speakers?
I think this was an interesting report, and it just shows what a strong financial position that this council is in. That the recommendation here is that we do not consider selling off any of our properties. This council is in a really good financial position, and it's good to acknowledge that at each opportunity.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No, I'm going to put the item, all those in favour. That's carried unanimously. That takes us to the end of the meeting. Thank you all to those who are in the gallery and to Councillors Burke and Spenceley remotely for your participation. And that is the close of the meeting. Thank you.
You're doing my work.
Yeah, of course I
As I said in that meeting.
Record.